Tommy, you wanted to talk about clamps, so I did a little scavenging up here in the loft, and I got just the thing for you. Here you go.
It's an old hand screw clamp. They come in all different sizes, Kevin, and they're great clamps.
So this one's actually got wooden screws, and that sort of tells you something about its age. Well, we've come a long way since the original hand screw clamps. There are a lot of options out there.
Right, now C-clamps right here, they're very common, and they come in all kinds of different sizes. And I typically use these when working with metal because they put a lot of force in such a small area right here, and it can actually damage the wood. Now what I do use a C-clamp a lot for is for clamping my framing square to a straight edge. Now when I'm making a stair string, I take the straight edge, hold it against my 1x or 2x, and mark the rise and run of the stair.
And just repeat that pattern down the piece of wood, and you can cut out your stringer.
Exactly.
All right, so if you get a lot of force off of the C-clamp, you might get less force out of something called the spring clamp, but these can still be pretty practical.
Now if you want to step up a little bit with a little more strength, you have this clamp right here. This is a quick clamp, larger projects, a little more strength when clamping because you can crank it right down. Now this one right here is actually spring-loaded, so it'll close on itself and you can tighten it right down. Now you can also reverse the jaws on this, so if you wanted to spread something apart, you could actually spread it apart like that.
Gotcha. So now if you wanted to get even more strength, you would go to a big guy like this right here.
That's a pipe clamp, right. And it comes in all different sizes because you buy the pipe the length that you want.
They actually sell the jaws. You buy the orange jaws.
Right.
And then you buy the length of pipe that you need, and you just put it together yourself.
Right, and you can get 3/4 inch pipe or 1/2 inch pipe. And you can adjust whatever you want, bring it down,
and then you use the screw for the last couple inches right there.
Right. Now the problem with these pipes, I use them a lot, but when you have a real long pipe like this and you're gluing up, let's say, a panel or a top or anything like that, when you crank that down, this pipe could curl or bend slightly. And when that bends, you actually get a little bit of lift in the center here. So you've got to be careful of that happening. When that bends up like that, you're not going to get a good tight joint.
And so the solution to that is sort of the next step up, and that's the bar clamp.
That's a bar clamp. It's a heavier pipe. It's actually like an I-beam at the end. And these two jaws are parallel all the time. So when you crank this down, you don't get that lift in the middle causing your top to bow.
You also got a big surface right here so that you don't, you at least lessen the chance of marring the wood.
Right, and you can also take this apart, spin this around for spreading things apart.
Okay, so let's talk about some specialty clamps. Here's
Right.
one that they have got made up to hold corners together.
Right, and it works pretty simple. Basically slide it on the board, holds the board into position. Now you can fasten it with a pin nailer or screws, whatever you want to do, if you're making a bookcase or drawers or whatever.
So there's not a lot of holding power with that. It's really just a third hand. But they do make
Right.
clamps, and you really have got to pull those two pieces of wood together.
Yeah, if you really want to crank that corner tight, there's one right here. You can basically put the two pieces in there like that, put them together, and make them even, and crank it right down, and put your fastener in.
And it's actually nice that it's left open here so that you can work on the ends.
Right, and you can do a butt joint like this, or you can take the two pieces and slide them together to make up a corner, and then you can fasten that corner like that.
So those are for corners, but they've also got clamps for edges.
Right, here's basically a C-clamp with 3 points. Basically put it on the top, and I would clamp it down, slide in my face frame, and clamp that while the glue dries, or you can install a fastener.
And these clamps right here hold the whole clamp on as you ratchet this down.
Right, but you got to be careful when you're using this type of a clamp because that C-clamp can do damage to the surfaces.
Now, of course, there are some tools that can clamp that you wouldn't necessarily think of, like, for example, surgical tubing.
Right, you can wrap that around whatever you want to clamp, tie a knot, and it's going to stay.
So now if you were going to put something together like a stool, let's say one of the stretchers actually came out like it did right here.
Right.
Again, you could use a surgical tubing and you could tie this around, make it nice and tight. That might do the trick for you, but then they've also got a strap clamp.
Right, it's an adjustable strap clamp that you could put down where you want to clamp, push it down, put some tension on it, and crank down on this little nut right here, and you've got a nice clamp.
Who knew there were so many clamps out there? Something for everything.
There's a lot of them.
All right, great information, Tommy. Thank you.
My pleasure.